Here we are together again on the radio. Dateline, Abington, Pennsylvania. There has been a new development involving an abandoned baby left on a doorstep in Abington Township, Pennsylvania, earlier this month. The baby's grandmother is now accused of leaving the infant out in the cold. Baby boy Doe. That's the baby version of calling somebody John Doe. Baby boy Doe still may not have a name. But at least police said they finally know how the hours-old infant ended up on the steps of the home in Montgomery County back on the evening of November 8th. The newborn boy was found wearing clothes and wrapped in a blanket. Abington police said in court papers that those clothes were purchased by the baby's grandmother. You know who the baby's grandmother is? 35-year-old Jacqueline Buffet. At a Target store on November 8th. Again, let me repeat, the baby's grandmother is 35 years old. It was after an anonymous tip to police that they learned that the clothes and blankets found with the baby were sold at Target stores. Court papers said police reviewed surveillance tape from that day and saw a woman buying the clothes. Court documents also state that investigators obtained the Bank of America credit card number from the day's receipts and traced her to a home in the Frankfurt section of Philadelphia. Police interviewed 35-year-old Buffet and her 17-year-old daughter. Police said in court documents that Buffet was at work. Her daughter called saying she was in labor, and by the time Buffet arrived home, the boy had been born. Buffet's daughter had concealed her pregnancy from her mother. The court papers said the grandmother bought clothes at the Target on Old York Road. And the intention was to take the baby to Abington Memorial Hospital, which is down the street from the Target. But police said the 17-year-old and Buffet told police that they got scared and spotted a home around the corner from the hospital. They knocked on the door and left the baby outside. According to court documents, Buffet told police it wasn't the intention to harm the baby. We were afraid. We didn't know what to do. We thought that we were doing the right thing at that time. No one answered the door on Monday at Buffet's home, although Durante reported that she did see people looking out the window. Oh, Jesus. Unbelievable. It says here the Frankfurt woman has been charged with endangering her newborn grandson. Buffet was arraigned and released on $5,000 unsecured bail. She has a court hearing scheduled. The grandmother could have avoided charges had she gone through with leaving him at the nearby hospital. Under Pennsylvania's safe haven law, anyone may leave infants up to 28 days of age at local hospitals or health care providers. The boy's now 3 weeks old, and he remains in the care of Montgomery County's Department of Children and Youth. And there's your story. Let me just say this. The headline on this story told you everything you needed to know. Grandmother, 35, accused of leaving boy on home's doorstep. If you are a 35-year-old grandparent, you are trash. You are a loser. You are a breeding machine. You are hopeless, a hopeless, pathetic loser. Anybody under the age of 42 years old who's a grandparent, loser. Frankly, if you're a 42-year-old grandparent because you had a kid at 15 and your kid had a kid at 27, I think you're still pretty pathetic. Having babies at that age, pathetic. And here you have a family now. You have a family where mom had her baby. No, the grandmother had her baby. Let's start with that. The grandmother had her baby at 18. So she got knocked up at 17. Then the daughter turned 17, and she's pregnant. So she got knocked up at 16. Trailer trash, losers, pathetic, bad judgment. That's what you have. That is what you have. It's unbelievable. Amazing. By the way, how do you like this? The daughter, who's 17, concealed the pregnancy from her mother. What are you worried about, dear? Your mom got knocked up at 17. It's family tradition. If you are a grandmother who is 35, 34, 33, 32, 31, 30, or God forbid any age under that, you are automatically, positively, guaranteed a complete and utter loser. Aren't you?
Tom. 1-800-5800-TOM.
It's a big goddamn support group. That's what it is.
Yeah.
The Tom Leykis Show.
It's the Tom Leykis Show. Thank you for tuning in. 1-800-5800-TOM is our telephone number. Come on, if you're a 35-year-old grandmother, you are trash. You're a loser. You're pathetic. Eric on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Hello, Tom.
Hello, Eric.
Yeah, I just wanted to call in and weigh in on this subject because I do have some past experience with it. My mother was a social worker for 30 years in South Texas and here in California. And I was telling your screener about 12 years ago, she literally went crazy from dealing with these people. Because all day long they deal with, you know, the crying mother. You know, my husband's a drunk. He's selling the food stamps to buy beer. Or, you know, they're 28, 29, 30 years old, and their 15-year-old daughter got pregnant. So my mom was dealing with this for many, many years, and she finally snapped, and we had to have her committed for 6 months because she couldn't deal with it anymore. She couldn't deal with just the cycle and the circle of trash, and these people don't see it as wrong. It's just, you know, when my mom had a kid at 17, a thing. Nobody teaches them anything. You know, and
and here's the thing. Society has become so politically correct.
We can't yell at them for it.
People get angry at me for saying 35-year-old grandmothers are losers. So are the 34s, the 33s, the 32s, the 31s. Losers.
Yeah. My mom actually, before she went off the deep end, she's fine now, by the way, but that doesn't matter. She used to come home saying, you know, that they should sterilize these people in these situations until they prove they have a right or the responsibility to take care of a child. Because what happens is they have one kid that go on welfare. Well, you get X amount of dollars for each kid, so it doesn't behoove them to not multiply. It behooves them to have more and more kids. So, I mean, it was not in any way, shape, or form odd for her to be dealing with a 26, 27-year-old girl who's got a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 7-year-old, you know, 7 or 8 kids, and she hasn't even, and these people haven't even hit 30 yet.
Outrageous. And the stuff you're telling me is so ridiculous.
And there's nothing that American society, the way we are going, is going to be able to do about it until we start considering things like, I mean, I don't know if sterilization is the answer, but creating life shouldn't just be a right of any Tom, Dick, or Harry, or Mary Jane and, you know, Guadalupe that's able to conceive. It just shouldn't be. You know, the overpopulation problem in China, that's going to happen here someday. That's all there is to it.
I'm blown away. I'm hearing you tell me these stories, and I can only imagine what it would be like to be a social worker like that and having to live with it.
My mom had a huge heart, so she felt for these ladies. I mean, yes, it is very sad. But once again, nobody forced them into a relationship. Nobody forced them to have sex. Nobody forced them to have child 1, child 2, child 3, and then 4, and so on. I mean, these are all just one bad decision after another, after another, after another, after another, and it's never going to stop until the bleeding heart liberals realize that everything in this world is not a right. Some things are privileges and have to be earned. You have to get go to driver's training, 24 or 40 hours of whatever driving training you need in order to get a license. But any kid, as soon as they're able to, can reproduce. How does that make any sense?
Well, the point is, we're not going to stop this with laws. The best way to start to reduce this problem, I think, is to start telling people this is wrong. You're a loser. And we need to start turning them into pariahs. These are the people who we find unacceptable in civilized society.
They're never going to experience that, Tom, because you got to understand, if you grow up trash and all you're surrounded by is trash, then you don't know you're trash. It doesn't matter that, you know. Yeah,
but if the rest of us step up to the plate and say, your mom is 25 and you're 13, your mom is trash. You know, if people hear that enough, maybe they would think twice. But in this society, all they get is reinforcement for having babies at 13 and 14 and 15. We need...
A girl has to start fending for herself and her baby, or a 15-year-old girl and a 16-year-old girl, and there's no welfare and no food stamps and none of that stuff. And you've got to go out and work your 12-hour job at $6 an hour just to make enough money to live in a crappy apartment and buy your baby the minimum amount of formula and the minimum amount of diapers. That's never going to change. But they get so much help from WIC, Women, Infant, and Children is what it's called here in California. You know, they get everything, diapers, milk, formula, meats, vegetables. They're all little coupons, and it's all free to them, but it's not free to Tom Leykis. It's not free to me. It's not free to every other person who goes to work 10, 12 hours a day, busting their butt for some other idiot who never didn't make good decisions.
Yeah, it's totally outrageous. I really agree with everything you're saying, Eric. Very frustrating, but I thank you for the call. 1-800-5800-TOM is our telephone number. We're talking about those human breeding machines, those human Xerox machines, the 35-year-old grandmothers of our society. Come on. Can't we just start calling what they are? Losers, trailer trash, the worst of the worst. Michael, you're on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Great.
Yeah, so basically, there's some things I agree with, and then there's some things I don't. I myself, I'm just turned 20. I have my mom has just turned 37, so she was pregnant when she was 16, had me when she was 17, and I myself, I had a kid when I was just turned 19, but, my mom's worth over $5 million. She's got a great small business. She started up. She came up with a great family. There was no pressure of, hey, get rid of the kid, anything like that.
But that doesn't mean you're going to have $5 million or your kid. I never said that.
I never said that. I was brought up. My parents brought me up nice. They were well-rounded. They had everything. They were young. They were able to teach me things. They were able to do everything. I'm out on my own. I was out when I was 18. I moved away. I got a great job. I provide for my son. I married the mom. I understand that there are trash out there, and I understand that. But you can't sit there and say that all 35-year-olds, all 37-year-old grandmas are trash, because for a fact, my mom is not trash. I'm not trash. I'm not going to sit here and say...
What are you doing having kids at such a young age? Your mom may have made a mistake, may have had an accident, but why you?
You know, it wasn't a choice, obviously. Okay, I love my son. I'm glad I had him. You know,
why did you do it? Why couldn't you wait until later? Why was it necessary to do it now?
You know, things happen, Tom. And, you know, call them what you want. You want to call them mistakes. I call them miracles. So you want to go that way, you can go whatever way. You want to sit here and argue with me and say everyone's trash if they have young kids at a young age. But guess what? I'll be 35. You know, I'll have my son that's 15, and I'll still be able to relate with him. I'll still be able to go out and throw catches.
Oh, come on. That's ridiculous. You don't have to be 35 to relate to your kid. No,
yeah, obviously you do because, you know, you...
Well, why don't we just tell people to do it at 13 or 12? I mean, why wait as long as you did?
You know, that's not. See, you're just trying to sit here and argue your point because you're right and everyone else is wrong. But what I'm trying to say is, I understand your point of saying that, you know, there's people out there, yeah, in Modesto, Texas, somewhere way out there where, you know, they're sitting here at a trailer and that's what they do to collect their money. Yeah, I understand there is.
Yeah, what college are you attending, son?
OCC.
Yeah, in other words, a community college. And
I didn't go to a 4-year college out of high school. I'm trash.
Yeah, well, actually, unless your plan is to go to a major university, I'd say you're heading in that direction.
I've got my 50 units, whatever. I'm 20. I've worked my ass off. I've been going to school for 2.5 years. I'm going to transfer to a CSF, which is a 4-year university. It's a big 4-year university, and I have a state. I work for a very good water district. I make good money. I provide for my family, and I'm doing what I need to do. Okay, I'm moving up in the world. It has nothing's holding me back. I understand your point, Tom. I'm not trying to sit here and argue with you. I just don't see that you have to call everyone trash.
Well, and you are. And I'm going to tell you another reason, because when you get married at your age, son, and, of course, you'll tell me you're one of those rare exceptions who's truly in love. But the fact is, the odds...
My wife, and she has been there, and I'm glad that we're together. But I can't say in 15, 20 years that that's not going to be the same. Because
the odds are you're going to get divorced.
Okay.
So what was the rush? Right. What was the rush to get married? And I know the rush. You knocked up your girlfriend. That was the rush.
No, see, that's not the rush at all. We got engaged out of high school because we'd been together. She's the one I've been with all through high school. We've been through a lot. We got through everything, and you know we're happier than we've been since we've got married, had a kid, and that's just made things better. You know, you might think that's a sappy thing, and there's people that don't think that's the right way to go or anything. But you know what? For us, it worked out nice. And
no, but again, you don't know how it's going to work out for your kid. You want your kid having kids at 17 or 18 or 16? You think that's a good idea?
No, because guess what? My parents told me not to have kids when I was young. It happens, okay? You're not going to sit here and guard your kids all you need to do and get your girlfriend.
But you understand that it's more likely to happen in your home than it is in the home of somebody who waited until they were 25 or so to start having a family. You understand your kid is more likely to be a criminal, more likely to be a drug addict, more likely to be an alcoholic, more likely to be in jail than other kids. And you don't care. And you don't care. You don't care. You don't care. I've read the statistic. We've done countless shows on it. Believe me, it's out there. We've talked about it. I read the survey on the air, and I'm telling you it's a fact.
Okay, so as long as they come up in trash, they can be trash. But I'm talking about my specific, my family, myself. We've been brought up the way we've been brought up. I've been brought up the way I've been brought up, and I'll bring my kids up the way they've been brought up.
Yeah, but that doesn't... You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. That doesn't mean you're going to succeed at it. And many parents have failed. Your grandparents, your mother's parents, they failed.
They failed. They failed why? They
failed because your mother got knocked up as a teenager.
And you know what? And guess what?
That's a failure.
I get to spend all the time in the world with my grandma who loves to see me every day.
How old is she, 45?
45, yeah. No, she's 60, thanks. It's
outrageous. I mean, again, you don't care about any of this. You don't care what impact it might have on the child. You care about your own. I heard what you said. I heard what you said.
I understand.
If you understood, you would have waited until the appropriate time.
Oh, so what's the appropriate time? Between 22 and 25?
The time that it's less likely that your kid is going to be a delinquent.
Oh, okay. So it all matters about the age. It doesn't matter about the...
Actually, statistically, that's a fact.
Statistically, okay. So statistically, if it's someone else that's older, they're 25, they're 27. Okay,
it's statistically more likely that those kids will be less likely to be criminals, less likely to be drug addicts, less likely to be alcoholics.
All right, Tom, you got the statistics, not me.
Well, again, you just completely dismissed them out of hand. I mean, the fact is, we talked about it.
You wanted somebody to argue with about this. All I'm trying to tell you is, Tom, that there is certain situations where, you know what, it comes out good. There's nothing wrong. I'm not a criminal. I'm perfectly fine. I'm happy with the way.
We don't know if your kid's going to be a criminal.
See, Tom, you don't know if your kid's going to be the kid that goes shoots up Columbine. It just happens.
Yeah, but guess what? If you have a kid as a teenager, your kid is more likely than the kid who was not the child of a teenager. That's it. Case closed.
No, see, okay, Tom, you're right.
You know I'm right. You know I'm right. You have no answer to this. Hang on a second. Let me get Chris on.
I have no answer because
Chris, what did you want to say? What did you want to say to Mike?
I have time to go freaking look at the computer and see how many young teenage kids are the ones that when they have their teenage kids, those kids are the ones that go to jail and do all this stuff. I know my personal situation. I listen to your radio station. I love all the different things. And I was like, you know what? You want to start, I took a little person that you kept on calling a 35-year-old grandma trash. Because I can relate to that. I tell you my story, and you want to sit here and tell me about all these other people, all these statistics. Good, great, awesome. You're right about that. I'm just trying to tell you my story. I understand there's trash out in the world. I understand that. I told you my story. You want to sit here and bag on my family, that's cool, whatever. But I'm done talking. You know, I was great talking to you.
Wait a minute, though. Chris has something to say to you. Chris, what did you want to say to Michael?
Tom, this guy is just living in denial. You there?
Denial. Yeah, denial. Denial of what?
I mean, for God's sake, you're putting a dollar figure on your mother. And you're living.
I'm just trying to say that you don't need to be white trash. Okay, it doesn't necessarily you're trash when you have kids at a young age. It has nothing to do with that. There's obviously trash out in the world. And you want to go talk about how your mom was out in the trailer trash of Texas in the middle of where kids were just getting dropped off. That's fine, okay? I called in. I said my story about how my parents, they had a good upbringing. Everything was fine. They took care of me when I was young. You know, I had a young child, and everything's gone fluently. Everything's gone fine in my life. It has nothing to do with anything of yours. I'm just trying to rebuttal a little bit that there is some good things that happens out of having a young kid.
Yeah. Well, that's a tough life, man, but, you know, it sounds like you're in denial, and it sounds like you're trying to fight through the tough times, and you're just you're making excuses.
I have no tough times, man. I love what's going on with my life right now. I have no tough times. Because you guys are in this time, you guys might have some denial about something. I don't care. All I wanted to do was express it. There are some certain situations that there is positive outcomes. Just because it has to do with the family upbringing, and I understand that. But I was brought up well. I was raised well. Just because I had a young kid and my mom had a young kid, that doesn't mean we're trash. There's no trash there. We work for our living. We go to, things happen. It happens. No denial. There's no denial there. There's nothing other than the fact that I'm where I'm at. I'm happy where I'm at. And, there might be trash somewhere else, but I'm not trash, and I know I'm not trash.
Let me get John on here. John, what did you want to say to Michael?
Hey, Michael, you're denying big time, man. Hey, I come up from a single-parent family, man. My mom's raised me. She paid everything that she had to do. She paid her dues, man. It never was no welfare or nothing like that in my life. And I'm sitting here, I'm listening to this here, man. Hey, if you can't take care of your own, then you don't supposed to make them. Hey, I was 48 years old when I had my first kid, man.
Yeah, but you won't even be alive almost when they're graduating high school.
Hey, man, that makes no difference. Hey, I'm here right now. And see, you sitting up here, you're in denial with everything that it is because you're talking about what you done and your people on getting a social income and all of this here.
Social income? My mom made all her money out of every fighting, sacrificing. We struggled when we first started.
Well, what about your own?
What about my home? We lived in a regular house.
Yeah. Right? What about them? Were they all there?
Were they all there? What's that?
Did you take care of them?
Who?
What did you do?
Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about you, man.
Who was all there?
Huh? Your kids, man, your kids.
My kids?
Yeah.
I have, one. He lives I live away from my parents now. I moved out when I was 18.
Where is he at?
He's at home.
With you?
No, he's with the mama.
What are you doing?
I'm working right now. I'm talking about
what are you doing for this? For them?
What am I doing for them? For my kid, what am I doing for them?
What are you doing?
Supporting them?
You support them?
Yeah, I support them.
Yeah, with what?
With the money I work for.
Well, what are you talking?
See, you guys, you got to listen to what's going on in the conversation.
Well, hey, I was off in another conversation.
All right, well, we're all going to get into another conversation, but guys, I thank you for the calls.
Tom Leykis. 1-800-5800-TOM.
I knew you were always sick, but I just didn't know it was to this extent.
The Tom Leykis Show.
It's the Tom Leykis Show. At 1-800-5800-TOM. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for being part of our program. We started off with a story about a 35-year-old grandmother in Abington, Pennsylvania, who took her daughter's bastard child and wrapped him in blankets and left him at the front door of some strangers. And I say if you're a 35-year-old grandmother or thereabouts, you're just trash. You're trash. And it's time that we start saying that, for God's sake. 1-800-5800-TOM is our telephone number. Here's Sam on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Hey, Tom. How are you?
I'm okay.
I absolutely agree with you. My mother had me when she was 16 years old. And she always told me I was the best thing that ever happened to her, but the thing that she taught me most was to be better than her. And so growing up, I didn't have teenager or sex when I was a teenager. I went to college, and now I'm 25 years old, and I sure as hell at this age and still am not ready to have children because my mom taught me to be better. And the biggest thing that you said, you're absolutely right. We need to stop having these single mother and these single fathers and allowing them to be proud. If you're a single mother and a father, there is absolutely nothing to be proud of.
It's time we turn our nose up at people like that when they brag about being parents and saying, you know what? What you did is wrong. You are taking a big risk that the child you're having is going to end up in some kind of trouble.
Absolutely. And this guy that just called and said that, what's the right age to have children? There's no age. There's not a magical age. It's when you are financially and emotionally responsible enough to raise and bring another person into this world. And, that could be 25. That cannot be until you're 35. But it's sure as hell not when you're 19 years old.
No doubt about it.
And he says that this kid is the best thing that's ever happened to him. And that may be true, but all he did was go and make the same stupid mistake that his mother did.
That's exactly right. And then brag about it on a radio show.
Absolutely. I mean, it is absolutely embarrassing. We definitely need to stop supporting this behavior because there's absolutely nothing to support.
You're so right. I'm glad that you are able to be objective about this, even though your mom did the very thing we're talking about.
Absolutely. And I went to college, and I'm a successful woman now. And, if my mom, instead of teaching me to be better, if she just said, I was 16 and I was proud and this, and I probably would have made the same mistake she did. But fortunately for myself, she didn't. She knew what she did was inappropriate, was wrong. And, she owned up to her decisions, but she taught her children to be better than that.
Glad to hear it.
So thanks, Mom. If you're listening, thank you.
We all thank you, Mom.
All right, Tom. Have a good day.
All right. Appreciate the call. It's 1-800-5800-TOM. That's our telephone number. Becky on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Hey, Tom. How you doing?
I'm okay.
First of all, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Uh-huh.
I actually have both sides of the story. I had my first child when I was 23, single mom. He's now 17. I'm 41. Got married when he was about 4, so now I'm married, and I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old as well.
But you're not a grandmother.
No, I am not, and I won't be for quite some time. I've had that open discussion with him and explained to him how hard it was for me in the beginning, how you have to give up your life literally. Why all my friends were out having a good time, I was home taking care of him. But I have a sister who was 19 when she had her son, and I'm raising him as well. He's now 18 and on his way to college, but, you know, to tell the two different stories, I accepted my responsibility. It was hard. I love him more than life itself. And then I have the sister who, you know, thought everything else was more important and really didn't take care of him properly. And my husband and I took him in about 5 years ago.
So what was happening in your household that this happened twice? What was happening there?
Well, first of all, my mom had us when she was 38, so she was not a young mom, you know, in the 20s or whatever. For me, the lack of a father's love, even though he was in the home, I can realize that now. I did not know that when I was a teenager or, you know, early 20. I wasn't in therapy to learn that out, but my father just, for some reason, didn't love me or, you know, show love, so you go out and you seek that love.
Which, of course, now you see how this repeats from generation to generation.
I'm sorry?
Now you see how this repeats from generation to generation.
Correct. Now, see, but my mom was 38 when she had me. And she always professed to go to school, to go to college, not to be single when she didn't believe in having children out of wedlock. But I will give the fact that when the children were born, she was a very loving grandmother and did whatever she could to help us. But it was never financially. I've always taken care of my son financially. His dad, which obviously is not my husband, has always been in the picture, sees him when he wants, and, you know, me and him personally don't really like each other, but my son did not ask for the situation, so I bit my tongue for 17 years. You know, I've never spoken ill of his father in front of him. That is his dad, and he will make that relationship with his dad on his own. But I tell my son, I am the prime example of why you should go to college. I want you to get up in the morning and go to school, and I want you to find a job that you enjoy going to every day, not a job that you have to go to every day to put food on the table.
Makes sense to me, dear.
Yeah. But you know what, Tom? I will tell you one thing. If I had been listening to you when I was 23, I may not have been a single mom, because I agree with 90% of the things you say.
I wish you had, dear. I was on the radio in L.A. back then.
I didn't hear of you back then, but I have my son listening to you. He does listen to you.
Hopefully we can break this pattern, dear.
Yeah, we will. I will not be a grandmother until I'm at least 50.
Thank you.
So you have a great day.
Appreciate the call. Here comes Candace on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello, Candace. On line 1. Hello.
Hi, Tom.
Hi.
Hi. You know, I can't agree with you more in calling these people trash that are having children as children, and their children are going to continue to do the same thing. It's going, as you said, it's going to continue for generation after generation because they probably have no education, and their children won't get an education, and they decide to have kids so they can't get an education. And so now we're just filling the world with a bunch of stupid women. And I'm actually the child of a teenage mother. She was stupid, but she was smart enough to know to give me up for adoption.
Wow.
And she went on to, she has more money than God. She's had a very successful life. I've gone on to have a very successful life. But she knew enough not to try to raise a child as a child. You don't do it. You just don't do it. You can't be that desperate for someone to love you that you're going to ruin somebody else's life in order to make it happen. And that's what you're doing. You're ruining that child's life. You're zapping all the potential that child will ever have because you didn't outlive your own potential. You didn't get to a point where you had a life, where you became an adult. And so now you're taking that future away from that kid by deciding to keep the kid or have the kid.
Yeah, you make a lot of sense.
So, I mean, I'm very fortunate that she did something stupid, and then she did something smart.
You are definitely fortunate. Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate the call.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, Candace, 1-800-5800-TOM is our telephone number. Robert on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
How you doing, Tom? I have a disagreement with you. I believe you mentioned all who are having children young out of wedlock basically losers.
I said 35-year-old grandmothers, because a 35-year-old grandmother means not just one person had a bastard child, the bastard child had a bastard child.
You're right there, but I disagree with you because I do have a cousin who was a grandmother at the age of, I think it was 36, though. But she, didn't have much education when she was growing up, but she didn't use it, the fact that she had a child young, as a crutch to not do anything in life. She amounted to what I think is a great position in the insurance company. She's a vice president in one of the departments of a major insurance company. Her child went on to UCLA and graduated, making a decent living. But I disagree with your premise that everyone who is that age, I believe that most...
Who is, again, you don't twist what I said. I said 35-year-old grandmothers are trash.
Okay.
Grandmothers. Do you hear me? Grandmothers.
I understand that.
Did your cousin have a child and then the child had a child?
Yes, exactly.
You didn't say that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke. My cousin was a 36-year-old grandmother. She was born, her mother had her when she was 14 years old. So she went and had a child when I think she was 15 years old. And she's 36.
That is screwed up.
Right now.
We have to say it. It's screwed up.
Well, I'm saying, I agree, the majority of individuals who are having children this young are eventually going to be screwed up. The children might not be the most educated. But when you speak broadly in terms of all...
Broadly, this is a problem. I got to tell you, it really pisses me off, for God's sake.
The Tom Leykis Show.